Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night with a brand new episode of Star Trek Lower Decks to talk about. And I'm so happy to be joined by my fellow Trekkies, Starfleet Boy and Rachel. How y'all doing tonight?
Really good. How are you, Father?
I am
Yeah.
I'm fantastic. I'm recovering from Star Trek Las Vegas slash COVID. But I didn't get that sick, so not feeling too
That's
bad.
good.
So but yeah, I'm really excited. I got oh, this dog is excited too. Rachel's dog sitting, so there might be some
I
dog
am.
noises.
There's 3 of them.
So they're eager to hear about this new episode of Lower Decks too. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kick us off if I have the dog's permission. But I'm Fathery,
I'm Starfleet Boy.
I'm Rachel.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 206th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek old and new. And tonight we are talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game, written by Garrick Bernard and directed by Michael Mullen. Just before we talk about that episode, though, I got a little bit of housekeeping. I want to ask everyone if they haven't yet, if they could give us a subscribe on the YouTube channel. I know some people listen to the podcast, don't use the YouTube aspect of Tex-Trek, but if you could just go ahead and give us a subscribe anyways. Last I looked, we were one shy of 900. So we're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. So it'd be really cool if we could pick that up tonight during this live stream. But yeah, a while back, I promised that if we hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, I would make a music video of myself singing my least favorite song of all time, "Faith of the Heart."
It's
So,
your least favorite of every song ever?
Perhaps I'm not a fan, but I will do it. I really don't want to. So the ideal scenario would be if we could hit 1,000 subscribers on New Year's Day, so that I don't have to be held to that promise.
Wow.
I don't have to. But yes, if we hit 1,000 before the end of the year, I will definitely do the Faith of the Heart music video.
But wait, if it's New Year's Day, you would still have to sing it because that's the next year.
Right. So I'm saying that I don't want to do it. So I'm
Yeah,
saying
okay,
if we could hit 1,000 on New Year's Day, would be perfect. But we'll see what happens. I'm not
That's
going
like
to do
having
it
your
if
cake
we don't
and
hit it.
eating
If we don't
it
hit it
too.
by the end of the year, I'm not going to do it.
That's
I
like having
promise
your
that.
cake and eating it too, Father. Come on.
We'll see it. We'll see if I get to have my cake and eat it too. But speaking of cake, Cake is Eternal is one of our Patreon supporters. So are you, Starfleet Boys. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who helps us out on Patreon, including Gay Clevin Lundstrom, Crazy Dutchy, Joanne Robertson, Quarks Bar, and our anonymous supporters. Thank you all so much. So in addition to subscribing to the YouTube channel, if you really want to go the extra mile and help us out, you can chip in on Patreon. We have different tiers, different perks. You can come in as low as $2 a month, and that will get you into the Tex-Trek watch-alongs we do every month over in the Tex-Trek Discord. And I think we're going to do one September 17th, I believe, Saturday. They're always on Saturdays. We're going to be talking about we're going to be watching, actually, the episode of Fistful of Datas, the Western episode of Next Generation. So that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So all that out of the way, though, we do have a fun episode to talk about, or at least I thought it was a fun episode, The Least Dangerous Game. I'm going to recap the episode real quick by reading the official synopsis, and then we'll kind of expand on that with spoilers, and then we'll say what we think about it. But the official synopsis reads, on a tropical paradise planet, Mariner questions Commander Ransom on how he structures his away team, Boimler makes a bold career decision. And yeah, Mariner basically tries to go rogue and then is like, oh no, I'm going to act like I didn't go rogue. And then Ransom's like, good job for not going rogue. While Boimler is going to try to be as bold as possible and agrees to let a very scary alien hunt him. Like Predator or Prey, I guess more topical, but like Predator or Prey style. Or Hirogen, I guess, if you watch Star Trek. But yeah, I'm just going to go around the room and ask each of us to kind of share our opening statement on this episode, just the broad impressions before we talk about the specifics. I'll go first real quick, then I promise I'll shut up and we can hear something from Starfleet Boy and Rachel. Just my opening thoughts on this episode. I thought it was cool that they were setting up the story arcs for the rest of the season with the Mariner and Ransom stuff. You know, he's kind of like her probation officer. He's kind of the one, keeping an eye on her. It's going to be his decision if she gets to stay on the Cerritos or maybe even stay in Starfleet. So we're seeing that go in a certain direction, while also giving Boimler his season-long story arc that Mike McMahon has talked about, where he's going to be the bold Boimler. Something that Mike McMahon mentioned, I think, what was it, San Diego Comic-Con, that I thought that might have been what they were getting into last week when Boimler was saying like, oh yeah, go ahead and share all my embarrassing logs. I don't care. So I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of bold. But no, I guess it's here. We see like the motivation comes from Vendome being made captain. And so Boimler is like, okay, I need to follow in Vendome's footsteps and rise through the ranks like he did. But yeah, they're kind of each learning to be a little bit more like the other one, right? Like, Mariner's typically the bold character. So Boimler's having to be like a little bit more Mariner. And then Boimler tends to be like a little bit more like by the books. So Mariner's having to learn to be a little bit more by the books. And I don't think this episode had like as big of grand or flashy stuff as last week's episode, but I like that it kind of has consequences, that it kind of changes the status quo a little bit. And because of that, I think I actually prefer this episode over last week's. Last week's was like a big grand opening of the season and everything, but it just kind of, hit the reset button at the end. So I kind of like this a bit more, where they're moving things in certain directions. Oh, and it was also cool to see like a Tindy and Boimler scene, see like them hanging out on the ship, and then Rutherford and Mariner on a mission together, kind of changing those the way that they pair up the characters a little bit. But so okay, I'll finally shut up. Starfleet Boy, what were your broad impressions on the Least Dangerous Game?
Broad strokes, I just got to say that I agree with you that this episode somehow was a little bit funnier, maybe more. Yeah, I might have enjoyed it more, even though it's less, epic as the opener was. But the gags just keep getting it. Like, to me, it's just I tune into Lower Decks to laugh, and it always delivers. But then you get a ton more, and I just think it's cool to see the characters going in new directions this season. It's great to see, kind of Boimler taking charge, and I know I know they're setting it up for something big, like he's gonna like lose it or something. Just like there's all this anticipation and stuff like that, and the whole Mariner thing, like how long is she gonna take, Ransom's degrading and all that stuff. So it's just like, to me, I think this season so far is delivering past what I had hoped. What is his name? Cranch? Cranch?
Cranch.
Yeah, Cranch was incredibly designed, and just that whole story was so much fun. I want to see him in live action, and it was done well. Lower Decks does this really cool thing where like they kind of like make you think a situation's gonna turn out, it's like a favorite trope of theirs, where a situation's gonna turn out like a certain way, and then it ends up being like just wholesome and delightful. And it's like exactly what they did this episode with Cranch's character in a weird way. But yeah, so I really liked it. I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you guys and talking deeper about it.
Awesome. Well, Rachel, what about you? Give us your opening thoughts on this episode.
I really enjoyed it. I think that there was a lot. I think there's maybe more time for jokes this episode, because they're not having to set up. I mean, they are setting up the rest of the season, but not having to like set up as much as they had to do last week. But yeah, I felt like there was like the story. I felt like there was good stories for like all of the main cast in this episode, and even a lot of the like some of the people that are not in the main cast. And I sometimes problems just lower decks has such short episodes. Sometimes it isn't able to serve every character like as well in each episode, and I feel like this episode really did.
Yeah, they all four of the main characters all had some memorable stuff. I mean, I guess Tindy not a ton, but what was there is pretty memorable. I liked her, giving advice to Boimler.
Yeah, that was cool.
And she looks sexy in the towel, so that was
good for her.
She does.
But yeah, we'll just go ahead and get into the episode breakdown. We're gonna run through this whole thing beat by beat, talk about both of the main story arcs, and then at the end of the show, we'll go through the Gorn eggs. Those are all the Easter eggs, in jokes, and continuity connections. And there's some fun stuff in there. I actually found a big goof. They messed up. They got something wrong. Lower Decks got something wrong. They have a good track record of getting things right, but they got something wrong. And there's also another Easter egg I found that I haven't heard anyone else point out. So I might be the first to reveal this to y'all. But we'll just start off with the opening of the episode there at the beginning when they're playing their tabletop RPG, Batleths and BIHnuchs. That's how you say that, right? It's one of the Klingon words for like the Dishonored. They have a few different. They have a few different types of Dishonored, but yeah, this is obviously inspired on like D&D. It's B&B.
I want to play Klingon D&D so badly. It's everything.
Yeah,
it looks like
you could have you could have Martok voiced by J.G. Hertzler as your DM
I also
in this
find
game,
it funny because I conversation I've had with friends is how with like Star Trek characters like even play Dungeons and Dragons that I said that they would play it on the holodeck. But this is kind of fun. It's like no, you get a virtual version of this amazing hero to be your GM.
Yeah, so I think that's interesting that instead of like having one of your friends be the GM, it's like this actual famous Klingon. It's a Ferengi knockoff holographic recreation of them, and I kind of like that they're just doing it as tabletop game stuff with little figures instead of running around on the holodeck, because it's kind of like that's kind of the point of like these RPG games is like now like we don't have to play those now. We could play like video games where like it creates all of like the characters and monsters and everything, but like there's kind of an appeal to just using your imagination. And so I like the idea of like that continuing in the future. I would love if we continue to see more of this, kind of like how they would play poker on the Next Generation.
Yes.
Maybe they play this on the Cerritos.
That's really great kind of connection to TNG, but you were also making me think like the kind of return of this kind of gaming is pretty awesome because there is a lot of connection that you can make with your fellow humans, and that's always a good thing. Like, and so they got go ahead.
I was just saying, like, I love tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
They were like one of my favorite things.
Yeah, it's gotten like more popular. I think the trend has certainly hit like a resurgence recently.
I think even Star Trek has it is kind of like meta in so many ways because even Star Trek has like a little D&D group with Noah Averbach-Katz and Anthony Rapp and Blue Del Barrio and Ian Alexander and I forget someone, maybe Mary Wiseman plays too.
And I know Star Trek has Star Trek Adventures, which is their own tabletop RPG.
And then this is also a reference, which you're probably gonna reference, I think, in the Easter eggs, but to like in the 90s there were these VHS type of interactive sort of things, and I didn't play them personally, but we on our Twitter Spaces we went off like for like 15-20 minutes just talking about those because a lot of folks played them, and then I saw the videos on YouTube. The footage is on YouTube and it's pretty fun.
What I really liked about it was that the virtual Martok is that when he asked, how many Klingon warriors are going into battle today, and Tindy says 4, and then he responded like, I heard 4. Like it felt like it was a computer or something talking to you, whereas like it's like asking for confirmation, like I heard 4, please confirm, is that correct or not? So I like that little detail. And also at some point like Boimler rolls the dice is D20, and the way that the die landed in front of the pad, the Martok on the pad looked at the die, so it was like this cool little like the character on the pad is actually going to look at your dice, like look towards it. I don't know, it just seemed like it would be like a really cool use of interactive technology. It felt pretty well realized.
They're doing it off of a pad, but I mean, you could theoretically produce a holo of him to be the GM, and
but then I think it would have felt more like it was actually like Mart. It would have felt more like a character on the show, right. not like a computer
no,
program.
I agree. I'm just saying, like, that's the interesting thing is it is super cool how you can scale it into any device, basically.
I love that they're dressed up. Gotta stick to the theme to play the game.
That's the best part.
Boimler has his Klingon forehead on.
Reminds me of there you go. Father, you got to put that full screen so the audience can really see.
Well, maybe I'll show it later if they keep watching all the way to the end.
Nice. It's too bad I'm not at my house because I have a phone tablet.
Yes. By the way, I'm so envious of y'all with your ship backgrounds.
I did that.
Bust out your Stargazer.
I'm in my friend's home office, and I realized that one of their diplomas is behind me, and I was like, "Oh, you don't need to know like where my friend went to college." Like,
well, they used the scene to set up both of the main plots of the episode. Ransom is being a hard ass to Mariner when he's chiming her like you're almost late for being early, and also the Boimler thing with Vindome where Vindome I guess apparently just went like Chris Pine and just like shot up the ranks to captain immediately.
Good for him.
Yeah, I was wondering like we ain't seen Vindome in a while. Like he's not even on the ship anymore. He's in command of his own Kali class ship. So, but. I guess the storyline that we'll talk about first is the Mariner and Ransom stuff, the Dulane mission that they go to repair the orbital lifts, while there's also some diplomatic stuff that needs to be done. And the way that Ransom does this is he has the engineers go do the diplomacy and then have the command officers do the engineering as this kind of a test for Mariner. So
maybe
what do y'all think about
maybe he's trying to be like Pike and rotate people into different jobs.
Yeah.
Is that a Pike thing?
Yeah, on Strange New Worlds, do you all remember he was like sometime in the beginning in one of the first episodes they were saying how like Captain Pike likes to rotate people when they're ensigns or cadets throughout every part of the ship, and that's what Uhura kind of is going through.
Well, that's just the standard thing for all cadets, right? Nog did that on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I think it's just training for cadets to be like, hey, make sure you actually know what you want to do.
True.
Yeah, it was more of like trying to test Mariner to see how well she can show restraint. Knowing that she would want to go be part of the fun diplomatic mission. We should say the diplomatic mission is like, oh yeah, you get to make out with hot, sexy people and have, what was it, like a drinking contest, judge a wrestling competition, eat a feast. So
I feel like it's so intrusive that they kiss you with tongue. Like, I don't know if I'd be down with that.
Well, I don't know, man. Jesus,
when in what is their planet called?
I don't know. Buy me a drink.
Delane, yeah. When in Delane.
It's funny because Riker said the same thing about the Ito in the episode That's Justice, right. Which I think there's a lot of inspiration taken from there.
Oh, definitely.
When in Rome. The funny thing was like Worf was like, when and where, sir? It's like, Worf, you grew up in Russia and went to college in San Francisco. How the hell do you not know where Rome is?
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. You should know where Rome is.
It was before they figured out his backstory. No one knew he grew up on Earth.
No, what I found interesting, I was like thinking it's like almost like Mariners on a like what we call like a PIP in like work now. Like the performance improvement plan.
Oh, God,
yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, like She had to go like sign some she had like a meeting with HR.
Yeah.
And they had to like sign some papers.
Take your
Yeah,
pip
so-
and shove it. Sorry.
I
But yeah,
mean,
that's exactly
I'm
what
not-
she's on. She's like on her last
I'm
she's
not,
like
I'm not saying this is what they're doing here, but I feel like a lot of time real world PIPs are just like, we want to fire you, so we need an excuse to do it. So we're putting
Right,
you on one
yeah,
of these.
We need a paper trail so we don't have to pay you unemployment.
Mhm.
No, Starfleet's a little better. Like I think Ransom sincerely
Also, they don't.
is.
Also, they don't need money. They probably like I'll get food for everything. So there probably is no unemployment because there's no currency. I don't understand how money works in Star Trek.
Yeah, well, at least on Earth you don't need it for anything.
Yeah.
But
And you can have as much of it if you're going to places that require money as you need, because
Mhm.
the entire there's still a banking system of some kind, but it's just not. It's just so there's so much that it doesn't matter. It's like, imagine if every citizen of the Federation had like a trillion, credits or whatever.
yeah,
Back
well,
in-
I think some Federation planets use money just based on things that are said in continuity in the show. Like the Bolians have banks and stuff. They talk about the banks of Bolia or whatever. But on Earth specifically, there's no money.
Yeah.
A lot of people seem to think that applies to the entire Federation, but that's never been stated on screen as far as I
good point.
recall.
That's how I kind of assumed it was
Yeah.
like that. My assumption was that like if there was commerce, or it was just more of a formality to have currency than anything else, because the Federation would extend its seemingly unlimited resources to you.
I kind of liked Ransom's attitude of like, I'm gonna work out while I'm repairing this system at the same time.
Two birds, one stone. I get it.
But then he's kind of in over his head when he's having to like look up YouTube video tutorials later to figure out what he's doing.
That's funny.
No, because at first I was like kind of on board. I was like, oh, Ransom's trying to have a hard work teacher the value of hard work, and then I was like, oh, but you don't know how to do this either. I was like, oh, there's a disaster happening.
Joel in our live audience is pointing out that Billups was strangely into it for being ace. I guess talking about making out with the aliens and stuff. I'm like, I thought that was a little weird too. But
I mean, I guess maybe he's ace, but not a romantic. Is that?
Yeah, or like maybe he's okay with kissing, but doesn't want to go, I guess, past first base, to use probably outdated and problematic parlance. But there's the moment where he's chilling out by the pool where he's talking about all the fun stuff they're doing, and Ransom says, well, don't accidentally become a king, and Billups kind of dismisses that lie, like, oh, that's not going to happen, I'm busy doing all this other stuff. So you could also read that as like, yeah, sex is still a low priority for him. And then
also, he might be caught up in the whole cultural thing, like, oh, this is exciting. I have to kind of try kissing for this, so maybe I'll have a different perspective on it. Like, it's I don't know.
Speaking of the currency talk from a second ago, let's get dirgy. Hi, Jill, in our live audience is saying, Isik for your thoughts, talking about the Vulcan currency.
Oh, right.
Isix. But I don't know. Did y'all have any other thoughts on the way that the Ransom split up their duties before we talk about the rescue mission?
Yeah, I like that even they thought it was odd, and you could tell. I think PJ was saying how Ransom was doing this out of spite, not for like there was no real lesson or anything like that, and so I thought that was interesting that he's just like, he's so mad at Mariner for like all the times that she and we saw her do it so much last season, like where she would kind of like use her captain's daughter's privilege.
Did she do it all the time last season?
Well, I'm assuming. Sorry,
just in the first episode.
No, but she kind of like, I don't know. I feel like that was probably like one. We didn't see it all the time. You're right, but I'm assuming it happened all the time.
But the point of that episode is like he was pretty pissy about it.
Yeah,
and he was like, it's been weighing on him. So I think he's definitely letting, taking it very personally and letting her kind of have it in a way here. So I thought that was interesting. I did think also that before the season started and we saw the trailers, since the species that we're visiting, the Delanians is it the Delanians, right? The Delaney?
Yes.
They reminded me in the trailer of like maybe we'll return to that planet with Vol.
Yeah, from the
'cause they
apple.
had that kind of same vibe.
That's
Yeah,
what
the
I
apple.
was
Yeah.
thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. So those were my two things, but I was glad that it's a new species because it makes sense. There's so many variations of humanoids and human-like things. There's like Mentakans, that look like Romulans, and there's like like Vulcanoids and stuff. So it's cool that you have like orangish colored species as well.
I
They do have a similar society to the apple though, like with this whole worshipping of like a volcanic thing or whatever,
And a computer.
And a computer, yeah, that's right.
And a baby.
And a psychic baby that's swaddled, by the way. I saw your tweet.
So my problem with Ransom in this episode is I actually think here at the beginning, like he has, it makes sense. He's trying to test Mariner, be like, can you show restraint? Can you do the boring, more labor intensive duties while the other crew members are out having fun? Can you be the disciplined one to focus on the job? Where I think he gets a little carried away is that when they get the report back from Billups and Rutherford that they're in over their head and like it's starting to look like their lives might be in danger. And he's still telling Mariner, like, don't worry about it, just focus on the work here. I think that is when Ransom is being a little weird and out of line, and that kind of bothered me.
It went on like I feel like Ransom waited like too many beats to the fact where when Mariner went down, I was like, good, I think they're about to die.
Yeah. Yeah. And he does admit, to be fair, that he's wrong by the end. But I got to knock off some points of this episode just for that. They draw that out just too long, stretched a little too far for me.
Hey, Father, I've noticed this twice now. This season, do the characters have fingernails on close-ups? Because I feel like last season, before, no one had fingernails.
That is a good question. I will have to go and check season 2.
That's the second. Boims had fingernails when he was holding his pad earlier, and then now, or whatever he was holding, and now Ransom's got fingernails too. And I never noticed that before in Lower Decks, so maybe it's new.
It's funny. I was thinking that it would have made more sense than, I don't know, maybe for their arrangement. Maybe Ransom has to stay with Mariner, but it would have made more sense to leave her up there with Billups and have him go with Rutherford if he really wanted her to do engineering stuff. That way there was someone who knew what to do on each side.
Joel has a good question. Can the Delanians not repair the elevator, or they just couldn't reach the top? Because like all the equipment's Delanian, like they have that sun on it and stuff. And
right. I mean, and apparently they have their own YouTube tutorial videos on how to fix it. I think that Starfleet is just like so friendly that they're like, oh, we can get like the Starfleeters to come fix it for us.
Right
so
on.
We can stay here and play volleyball next to the volcano or whatever the hell they do down there. But I liked Mariner's Delanian. I don't know, what would you call it? It's not an environmental suit, but the skydiving suit.
Yeah, skydiving. I would say skydiving or flight suit.
It is some kind of environmental suit, because I imagine at higher altitudes they have to wear this if they're doing repairs outside, because it does go into beyond. It seems the space elevator what is it? They call
orbital
it
lift.
Don't
call it a space elevator. It's an orbital lift. Damn it.
The orbital lift seems to go out past the stratosphere of the planet, so who knows? I think it might be a kind of EV suit. I did like that you push the little sun and it tightens. Is that the first time we're seeing that in Star Trek 2? I don't think we've seen like a adjusting suit, have we?
I know, but I love that. I don't know what that originated for. Like maybe like the
Spider-Man, I feel like. Well, or no, Marty McFly back in the day.
I was thinking like the shoes and Back to the Future too.
And also his jacket did that. His jacket
jacket did that. Yeah, I got that looked cool. That was a cool little. A practical effect would be like a harder thing to do, but that's one of those things where it's like easy to do in animation. It's just like, oh yeah, it's baggy and then it gets tight, and the spectacle of like diving out of the space elevator. That's something that you typically wouldn't do on a TV show budget either, but animation helped them out there too.
And a nice reference that I'm sure you'll go over later.
It was funny when she got like the call from Ransom where he was like, you know what, you were right. We should go help them. I'll meet you and we'll go down there together, and she has to go all the way back up the elevator.
If that was her, I would have been like, okay, I'm right there. I'm heading out right now. Don't worry if I get there weirdly fast. Don't worry about it.
I also like that he was late because that she made it on time because he had to go to the
little commander's room.
Rachel,
you would be a better liar than Mariner. I don't know what that says about you, but yeah, but that would be a believable excuse, right?
Also, I didn't remember this, but now that
I'm just too lazy to go back up there.
Now that you have it up on the screen, I forgot that there's a whole rock climbing section on the
there's like a rock climbing wall because they're a fitness based or wellness based society, so it's like get your rock climb workout going back up the elevator.
What, the ladder won't be strenuous enough?
Also, if you need to get there in a hurry, you have to do these complex maneuvers because she's also doing it free. She's free climbing. I love when she's exhausted.
Oh yeah, if she falls, she's dead.
That might have been a little also a thing that's a little hard to believe was when she passes out back when
I love this
the second skydive when she goes down with Ransom, she's literally snoring in her helmet, but
I mean, realistic, no. Hilarious, yes.
What do y'all think about the actual, I guess, sacrifice, attempted sacrifice, I should say, of Rutherford and Billups? These people go pretty extreme if they're just gonna death penalty you for not having the appropriate belly button.
I mean, I figured because it was based off justice, where they were ready to kill Wesley.
Just for smashing flowers.
Right.
Yeah, it was crazy.
For smashing flowers at a certain time.
Right. If it happened any other time, no biggie. Yeah. It's just that you have to die now because you did it during the death time or death zone.
And Wesley Crusher, who is literally a child in that episode.
He's 14 being tried as an adult.
Yeah.
Boatwreck in our live audience is pointing out the system of checks and balances between the
what? Good for them.
Well, hopefully it works better than the system of checks and balances in our society.
Well, I was gonna say it doesn't seem like it does because there's no consent. There's no discourse. They all just agree to kill them. They're all no, they're there's no checks and balances. No one was on the Starfleet guys' side on their team. It had to be Ransom who had to come in and do his thing.
But yeah, it's Nandrik the psychic baby, his co-leader, the computer 355, and then the volcanic lord Morgo. And for whatever reason, the way that the volcano spoke, the way that the lava lit up, it made me think of the Excalbian in the original series episode, The Savage Curtain. So it's kind of like a molten rock creature also, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of TOS throwbacks. There haven't been psychic babies before, as far as I can recall. But
well, I mean, he wasn't psychic, but Baylock, right?
Oh yeah, he is kind of Baylock looking. Yeah, I think it's kind of like that same voice, right? You are wise, Starfleet.
I would imagine that's probably more that it's easier to animate a baby than get a parent to agree to bring a baby to a set and be I don't know, try to make it look like it's talking.
Yes, especially if it's a psychic baby and you don't have to make the mouth move. It just communicates via thought.
Are Betazoid babies psychic like that? Are they able to Are they able to read thoughts at even infancy? I wonder.
They probably don't. They probably just have it's like when you talk to a baby and they don't really understand what you're saying, but they figure it out over time, I would think. But yeah, a totally telepathic society is an interesting thing. I wish they would explore Betazoid more. Maybe we'll get more Betazoid someday.
I wish they did a David Lynch and everyone whispered what they were thinking so we could Sorry, Rachel.
I was because I've always been fascinated by Betazoid society. I wonder if it's something where I could see a baby maybe able to read their parents' thoughts. Or maybe just feelings. And the same way a baby doesn't know how to communicate that it's it's just always sad to be like, it's happy, 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 sad. Figure out what's sad.
Yeah, if you're in an entire race of telepaths, you would have there'd be no lying, there'd be no dishonesty, there'd be no secrets, there'd be no blackmail. It'd be really really weird. That
I mean,
would be
isn't
very
that
different.
basically what that society is? And God, I cannot remember what that episode is called, but the one where you find out about Deanna's sister.
Dark Page, right?
Yeah.
Oh
but
yeah, you're
she's
right.
working with that society that only does telepathy, and they're like, she's keeping something private, and Deanna just assumes like, yeah, she has some private thoughts. Like,
Yeah, I need to rewatch that episode because I've always kind of disliked it, but I heard like the Women at Warp podcast, which I'm a big fan of, and they did a good episode on it recently, and it was like, yeah, I need to reevaluate Dark Page, so maybe
I appreciate it. It's something like I don't remember enjoying that when I was a kid. I remember rewatching it as an adult and be like, it affected me more as an adult then.
Yeah, I think that's what some of them were saying too. So yeah, I need to reevaluate it. The thing that I liked most though here at the volcano sacrifice though in this episode was there's kind of a sweet moment between Rutherford and Billups where Rutherford's like, it's been an honor, sir, and then Billups is like, it sure has, Samantha, or whatever they say. But yeah, I kind of like that bromance that they have. They establish like how much respect they have for each other.
Okay, there was a time in season 1 where I was like, are we supposed to be shipping them? Because they're kind of adorable.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Although I think Rutherford and Tindy, I think that's going to be a slow burn.
I think so too. Well, especially because it does not seem like Billups would be super into a romantic relationship.
Yeah, Billups is only in love with engineering. He likes warp cores and plasma relays, and that's where his passions lie.
I've heard that theory about Geordi too. So.
Well, Picard season 3, he's we'll see where how Geordi ended up.
I like that Ransom is instantly oiled too. By the way, it's all shiny and stuff. It's like,
yeah, when Ransom rips off his
what is under his shirt? That concerns me.
Yeah, he's just well. I mean, like a lot of times, when Kirk is shirtless in the original series, he's always shiny like that. So.
Maybe it's supposed to be sweat. They are next to a volcano.
He's glistening. One thing that always bothers me in shows and movies and stuff when they're on like the edge of a volcano, I just assume there'd be like so much like fumes and stuff rising from the volcano that you would just be like coughing the entire time, like the smoke and the ash and everything.
They're in Star Trek specifically, they could be like, since they have space elevators, they could be like the Baku, and they have like a shielding system that like, thanks for doing that close up. Wow. They have like
does smoke come out of lava? Like, I don't know exactly how that works.
It might.
I know.
As it gets into contact with the rocks around it and starts to like get, but I mean, there's a lot of smoke, I think, in actual eruptions because of all the material that's being like destroyed as it's happening. Sense. But I think during a regular like lava, like where lava's just kind of sitting, like where it's like a lake or whatever, I bet there's not a lot of smoke, but there's still probably like very dangerous fumes, like there's sulfur and like all kinds of other
things.
But I used to work in an aluminum smelter, and you can't stand over like molten material without a respirator, like a gas mask or something on, because it'll just like there's just so much stuff in that smoke that it'll make you
movies
cough.
And TVs also have people just walk away from explosions all the time.
The time. I mean, it's a space volcano, so I don't know how the molten material works on the Dulane planet.
I imagine they feed this volcano very healthy healthy diet of like people who are
Starfleet officers apparently.
Of Starfleet officers or whatever, like or whatnot. There was an interesting conversation that came up in our Twitter Spaces that we do, where it was pointed out that like wellness and health often in TV and films, like this is the vision of it, like Jack Ransom, like with abs and stuff like that, but that it's important to remember that in real life there's a lot of different wellness is a spectrum, and like you don't have to have the Jack Ransom fit body type to like be, healthy and in shape. Like there's different body types and all of them have different levels of fitness.
Sure, but I think these are supposed to be like very like superficial people.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
part of the joke.
There's a
right?
commentary. There is definitely a commentary going on.
Yeah, because that's an aspect
sure.
of our society.
Definitely.
But yeah, the ransom
cultish
lava
kind of
tubes.
like health type of
Yeah.
movements that we have. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always like a little unhealthy when you take like one very specific aspect of your life and you kind of build your entire identity around that thing.
Around that.
I know, like I run the risk of doing that with Star Trek. I apologize. I promise. I talk about other stuff.
Run the
sometimes,
risk. I've
so-
already crossed that line. I need help. I need a 12-step program.
And the last time I went to Half Price Books, I just happened to find a lot of Star Trek stuff, and I looked and I was like, I swear I have other interests. Like,
me too.
Yeah. Ask me about Texas barbecue or heavy metal music or a
Nice.
whole bunch of other things.
you know, I might
Ask me
have to
about
ask-
Lord of the Rings, by the way, but not here on Tex-Trek because you'll get muted.
Well, anything else on the Dulane story before we transition over to the Boimler and Cranch stuff?
No, but are you like purposely flashing Ransom's abs at me?
Abs.
It just feels like you are. For the audio audience, you can't see this, but Father's shown these abs a lot.
Well, then he just like randomly zoomed in on them. I
Look at me. The best thing is Mariner's face in the background. That's the first time I'm seeing her.
She's like surprised that this works.
Is that a gog? Is she a gog?
I'm with Mariner, just been like, why?
Look at the baby.
But there's also a very, very cool Easter egg in the scene that I'll mention later when I go.
Is
through
that the one that you
born
think
eggs.
no one else has seen yet?
No, I ain't heard no one else mention it yet.
All right, cool.
Nice.
But, yeah, I guess let's talk about Boimler back on the Cerritos and him and Tindy and Boimler trying to wrestle with the fact that Vendome shot up and became captain and he's still a lowly ensign even into the third season of his show. So, yeah, this is the Tindy and a towel scene where, but she gives him this cool pep talk where I like seeing her kind of take like an aspect what's going on with her character and remind us, the audience, that oh yeah, she's on track to become a science officer now, like a senior science officer. You know, they hinted at that last week a little bit when she was the one who figured out what was going on with the Verugament, the space critters and stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, she's doing science officer-y things in season 3. But you know, she kind of tells Boimler that you can't always just, you know, stick to the plan you started out with. Like, I never thought I would be on this path of going towards becoming a senior science officer, but now I am, and I'm embracing it, and that's been very fruitful for me. So Boimler agrees. He's just going to say yes to everything, any opportunity that comes along.
Mm-hmm.
This was such a good plot. You know, Boimler just, I think Boimler's just like so perfect for these kinds of scenarios. Like I really feel like he's relatable to a lot of people who identify as like nerds or geeks or whatever, you know, just like being awkward and stuff like that. And so it just reminded me of so many scenarios growing up in my personal life. I feel like between Mariner and Boimler, Tendi, and Rutherford, they're all kind of like 4 aspects of different periods of my life, and I just like I like the show for obviously what it's doing, but I also like how it reminds me of these things, and I think they're kind of universal experiences. We've all been at our first jobs, like you know we've all had that, like the ensign or the cadet rank in life, you know, when we're starting out and stuff like that. And so
Sure.
I love that about the show, and I love seeing that, and they just do. It's like, did you say this earlier, Father, where you just kind of forget you're watching an animated show? Like that's, it's so just the way that it's done. It's like, you know, it just feels like it's any other Star Trek. It doesn't feel like, you know, like I have to stretch myself to like go into this world.
Mm-hmm.
We get a new character, Sherwin, who I think I laughed out loud when he invited Boimler to come play spring ball, and And at first, Boimler is like, "Oh yeah, a lot of big meatheads throwing balls at my face. No thanks." And then Sherwin's like, "You could have just said no, man." That's pretty funny.
I was like, yeah, boy, that was actually just kind of rude. Like,
Yeah.
he was being perfectly nice. He invited you to come, like.
But he does it, and then he impresses Shax not with his athleticism, but with his sustained screaming when Shax runs him over. So then he gets invited to the choir.
I also like that he casts Boimler as a soprano.
I noticed that too. What I find, there was a pang of jealousy because I'm an alto. I cannot hit those high notes, and apparently Boimler can.
Now, what's the deal with Chief Lundy? I remembered him from season 1. He called Tindy well, not him, but the hologram of him called Tindy a dirty Orion in the Crisis Point
I don't
episode.
know, but I was with Boimler. I was like, don't say no to whatever's happening here. Like, don't say yes.
Well, also,
like, use your brain. Something's wrong.
He's so creepy, but he reminds me of those like kind of what's that movie, Blue Velvet, or the David Lynch film with the folks talking kind of weird and backwards-ish, sort of, you know.
Yeah,
like...
he almost like sounded like a little like Swedish.
Oh, or maybe Lundy might be a
but...
Swedish name, actually. Now I'm
maybe
thinking about it.
He just got the vibe of like. It felt like I was like, are there going to be other people talking Boimler too? Because you feel like you're trying to get him alone somewhere.
Boimler did it though. He got oiled up and did it.
What was it? He didn't get oil. I know he says like oil me up, but like I thought they were like doing like oil paintings.
That's what I thought, and then he responded, and no one corrected him. I was like, are they oiling him up? What's happening?
Maybe they're painting Boimler
because they needed a skeletal boy to
that was that was a scene I wanted to see, by the
was naked boy. You didn't get enough nude Boimler and I excretus.
There's never enough nude awkward Boimler. There's never enough. Nude awkward Boimler screaming, as a matter of fact.
I want to see that scene of him like nude drawing, but like have it referencing Titanic.
we know that
draw me like your French girls.
Yeah, exactly.
We know that springtime in the audience. Control yourself, Mr. Sharply Boy, Captain. but I will just say that Jack Quaid himself is not did he do the Boimler pose? That's funny, Joel. Jack Quaid himself is not afraid of nudity, because if you watch his other show, he definitely appears nude in that show.
Oh, I have not watched The Boys. Interesting.
Well, I don't think they'll go that direction for the crossover with Strange New Worlds, but it's possible. we have nude Boimler in live action.
That would be a weird choice. Like,
by the way, on that subject, it occurs to me that Boimler is supposed to be like a short dude and like a real skinny dude, and Jack Quaid is actually like he's not a little man. Like he's over 6 feet tall. We saw him in Chicago, so yeah.
He's rather slender still, though.
Yeah,
he's slender, but he's no what did Lundy say? 61.2 kilos. Like,
I think 130. Someone was saying 135 pounds is on the lightweight side. I guess it is if you're a boxer or something like that. But
Jack Quaid's bigger than that.
But yeah, like I feel like for Boimler's height, which is probably like around average, like 5'7" or so, like that's
they're
probably
either going
average weight.
To pretend that, like, yeah, this height makes sense, or maybe Mariner will make a comment like, "How did you get taller?" or something like that.
Yeah, I think they'll probably just ignore it. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, is Boimler
taller
than Boimler shows up taller than Mariner, right? Or are they the same height? Like in the,
I don't know. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
But he's definitely shorter than Cranch, who towers over him when they meet in the Cerritos bar.
Cranch just might be humongous.
Oh, by the way, real quick aside, the superstarbio.com says that Jack Quaid weighs 187 pounds, which is more what you would think for someone.
That
of
sounds
his
about
height.
right. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk about Cranch, who is, for a scary looking dude, is very polite. You know,
I love it.
And Nolan North did a really great job with the voice. Like, he always sounds like very scary and alien and kind of like animal like and you know, not human at all. But he has very very good manners. He's just explaining, you know, like, oh, my species has an irresistible drive to hunt. Can I please hunt you? I don't know why they just didn't stick them on the holodeck. You know, that's what they did with the Hirogen and Voyager.
That's what they would have done if Boimler wasn't in his yes mode. Because everyone with sense is like, no, you can't hunt me. And someone would have definitely said at some point, but if you go to the holodeck, you can totally hunt all you want. You know,
maybe Tindy should have suggested the holodeck instead of like, oh, maybe Dr. Tiana can help you in sickbay. But yeah, Boimler does say yes pretty quickly.
I wonder,
Twice.
do we think this is the like alien that's supposed to like be hunting Tosk from Deep Space Nine?
No, I don't think so.
No, because it would have been.
Oh wait, do we ever see? Yeah, we do see those guys, and they look just like Tosk, but they don't actually.
Look, they look
have
different,
hair, and
they're like a classic '90s Michael Westmore alien.
Yeah,
I guess it's been a long time since I watched that episode. I can only remember what Tosk looked like.
But it was a very similar
played by Admiral
concept.
Jarok actor, the actor who played Admiral Jarok. I feel like it's the same actor, I think, who plays one of those aliens, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that's a good point. He needed good pictures from the hunt. The holodeck might not have been good. How does the holodeck like photograph?
This is wild that he breaks his tooth off and marks him with his green fluorescent blood on his forehead. I really loved how the insanity of this moment,
like the like the ritual of it, and then how he kind of like creepily slips away to the back of the bar.
For a moment, I was wanting to go like Simba, while he was like putting it on his forehead.
I didn't make that connection, but and then when we see him doing his ritual, when he's like getting like high off those candles, it like makes his eyes all weird and scary looking. And I think I laughed out loud again here at the 3 types of prey, where he's like, you know, the first type is immobilized by fear. The second type flees and tries to hide. And then Boimler's like, what about the third type? He's like, oh, that's a winged reptile. It doesn't really apply to you. But we get to pay a visit to Cetacean Ops again when Boimler is fleeing the boomerang that's tracking him, and Kimolo and Matt.
It's so funny when they were like, you went in there with your shoes on.
They're like, that's messed up. Don't come in here with dirty shoes.
What would a whale say that's like the equivalent of like, do you live in a barn? Like, do you live on land?
Or were you raised in a barn? Would it be like, I don't know, were you raised in a, I don't know, barnacle field? I don't know.
Or were you raised on land? I guess it would just be like, you know, like
I was trying to think of the only thing I came up with, like, were you raised like on the Jersey shores and the beach there?
I think they're funny when they're mad though. I like when these belugas get mad. I don't know, just like the
they're
animation.
Funny when they're mad or when they're very into Rutherford.
Yeah. When they're mad or when they're horny.
Yeah, it's true. Which is kind of, I guess, what whales always are. But so there you go.
That's dreadful.
One more thing. Could you go back to that frame? Or actually, this one's fine too.
Are they whales or are they dolphins?
They're belugas.
Belugas, okay. Which are, what are they? Right? They're cetaceans, I guess. So it's like but the character Cranch. A lot of folks are comparing him to the Predator, and I kind of never saw it, but now I'm seeing it a lot more.
Oh yeah,
I can see it.
He had like a Predator type vision when he was like scanning Tindy and scanning Boimler. I loved the moment of him and the captain though, when thanks again for the mimosas, like just like he's so polite, and even
I want to have mimosas with him.
Even Captain Freeman being like, oh, that Cranch, he's quite the charmer.
Ma'am, you're married.
They really utilized J.G. Hertzler, though, when we get the motivational Klingon speech from him to Boimler about how don't let your foe define who you are, and that encourages him for the prey to become the hunter, the hunted to become the hunter, and he has this Rambo moment.
It's pretty awesome. Look at that.
I did see this joke coming a mile away, where Boimler is like giving the speech about how he's not going to lay down, he's not going to give up, he's going to take a stand, and then all of a sudden, he's just speared through the chest, and Cranch just wanted a selfie.
Which I guess is a commentary on these like hunters, although they don't do it. They don't let their prey live, but these hunters that take stupid trophy photos over their kill, but it's just kind of triggering for me. I don't like hunting myself personally, unless it's necessary. Like I don't like it as a sport.
I guess they were comparing it to something like catch and release fishing, which is like we're doing this for the activity of fishing, but we're not actually trying to kill anything.
I also just don't like that because when I used to do that as a kid, it always bothered me, even though they said it's safe, that the fish would be mauled by it. They would have these like holes from the hooks,
Dr. Mbinga goes fly fishing at Starbase 1.
I know he does. I know, but still, I'd say something to him.
But here with Cranch, he got consent from his prey. He asked like, "Is it okay if I hunt you?"
It's a complicated thing. You're absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with what they were doing. I'm just saying it's a triggering thing for me.
At least I wonder if it's like, I guess similar to like not like modern fox hunting, where they're not actually like chasing a fox at all. They just have something that smells like.
Sure.
And so the dogs just go chase a scent and then they go find a person.
But okay. But it's unclear to me if the fox. Oh, they're not chasing a fox anymore, right? Is that what you're saying?
No,
okay. I like that.
I'm pretty sure what they're chasing is a scent of fox urine.
I think it's all going to change when we have these, like, robots, like, in Westworld, like...
The idea is that the people wanted to still do the activity of going out with their dogs and, like, going running with them for a fox hunt, but they're like, no, the fox killing part is kind of messed up.
It's kind of messed up, yeah, very... And, like, the running of the bulls, there's some things that are, like, traditions for certain cultures, and I do have to, like, give a little bit of space for that, but just personally, it just, like, I wish that culture would... move on from that activity or evolve it perhaps like to something like what you just said.
Well, I would like to see Cranch return. I think that there's a possibility that happens because he tells Boimler, you've earned my respect, and I think they might be building to something with Boimler here because Boimler also he's owed a favor from Shax, and Cranch tells him like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go tell your captain how great of a job you did honoring and respecting my culture. So maybe Boimler will rise in the eyes of the captain. So I don't know, maybe Boimler will be bold this season and impress all these people, and then we'll see it have a big payoff at some point.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
Wondering if we're getting... I guess it's hard because the premise of the show is that they're the lower decks, but it kind of was like, eventually they have to get promotions, right?
Well, not if you're Harry Kim.
Well, that's true.
Or, who had it worse? I bring this up all the time, but Travis Mayweather and Hoshi Sato, they were both ensigns for 10 years. Because we see them in 2161 in that last episode, and they're both still ensigns.
And it's not great, all people of color.
Yeah. The Asian dude, the black dude, and the Asian woman, never promoted.
At least
pretty terrible.
You know what I will say about Harry, though? At least Harry didn't sleep in the hallway.
That's true. He had his own room.
20 years an ensign. That's like worse than Lieutenant Picard.
Well, do you have any other thoughts on Boimler and Cranch before we talk about the ending?
No, just that, like, again, despite what I said earlier about being triggered by hunting, it's hilarious. It's a very funny gag.
Yeah, I did see a lot of the stuff coming. Like, I did the gag of like, oh yeah, Cranch was never actually going to kill him. As soon as Boimler like stood his ground, started talking, he's just going to get speared through the chest. But the execution of it was pretty well realized.
I did love, because I did not see this coming, Cranch being like, let me give you some advice. I was like, Boimler's not doing this again. Make him to sick bay.
Oh yeah, yeah. He didn't quite read that very well. But...
The other thing I like just overall this season, I notice every season the animation improves a little bit, and that's certainly true. That continues to be true. I mean, like, the animation is just so good. It's like such
gorgeous episode.
Yeah, like
Amazing.
also just the way that they move, like the everything, like the rack focus. They do rack focusing where like the foreground or background is blurred depending on who the focal point is of the of the scene. They use like perspectives that you would see in cinematic or television lenses.
The lighting is always
is
phenomenal.
very phenomenal. Like the atmospherics, as you said, and like even the pad has like a sheen to it, like a certain like look to it. It's just like there's so much texture, and the artists working on the show are doing a superb job like at this. So huge shout out to them. Like the
background
characters, everything.
The background characters aren't static. They're like moving. They're blinking and like doing things with their hands and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of detail. But yeah, the ending, Mariner is like actually like kind of happy and kind of impressed with Ransom, but then Ransom ruins the moment that they share together, where he's just like, but this doesn't erase all the time you gave me insubordination in the past. I still have my eye on you. And
I'm kind of with Mariner being mad at him at the end. He almost let two people die.
she was trying to pay him a compliment.
Yeah, she's totally trying to like totally trying to like reach out and give the olive branch here, and he was still a dick.
And we know that last time he took his shirt off like that, he ripped his shirt off. Like, she was really into it then, like the like so ethical thing way back in season 1. But
at least that time he wasn't like waiting to go in and save people. I'm just giving Ransom a hard time this episode.
Yeah, he could have been a little bit more receptive to the compliment there, instead of just being like, yeah, you know what, I was impressive. But I don't know. I kind of think they might be trying to build more into the attraction between the two of them. I was wondering if we would get that after last week setting up the new dynamic between them.
It's a total Lower Decks Benedict and Beatrice situation.
But where is Jennifer? like Mariner's supposed to have a girlfriend now, right? With Jennifer.
Were they together? I forgot. Last season they got together, like it was formal, or was it just like an intro? Like, did she say something like
they seemed like they were going on a date.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like they were like the last time we saw them, like they like walked off, holding hands, admitting that they liked each other.
Right. Okay.
So, but I don't know when we're gonna see Jennifer. Oh, actually, I do. I think she's gonna be in the next episode based on the stuff we saw in the trailers.
Yeah, she's definitely in the season.
If she's supposed to be dating Jennifer, I don't want them doing anything with Ransom, because that would be weird, and I like.
Also, I've dated someone for like a week and then it didn't work out, so who knows?
I mean, that's fair. If her and Jennifer were like, yeah, it didn't work out, cool, go do whatever the hell you want then.
Right.
Yeah, I would be curious to explore either relationship. I would love to see more Jennifer and Mariner. I'd love to see, Ransom and Mariner, and see what kind of direction that goes into. So yeah, I would be open to either one. But yeah, I'm kind of like you, Rachel. Kind of want them to like pick one or the other, or just focus, or just at least confirm what's going on.
Look, I'm not a love triangle girl. I read a lot, and there's so goddamn many of them.
Yeah, it's true. We had Worf, Riker, and Troy, and TNG. We had, I guess, what would you say was the kind of triangle in DS9?
Well, they tried.
Well, Strange New Worlds is definitely putting a whole lot into the Chapel to Pring Spock.
Oh,
triangle,
right. That's true.
Voyager did like Paris, Kess, and Neelix, which is the weirdest, because I'm like, just get Neelix out of here. We don't need him.
Yeah,
I think hilariously, none of those people end up together.
I guess Julian wanted to sleep with both Daxes. Is that a weird?
Well, he succeeded with one of them.
Yeah, so that's like a weird one too. Oh, and
Uh,
Ston.
Is
They're
Worf in
actually a
that love triangle
quadrangle.
too?
it always seems weird.
Let's get Dirgy says don't forget Ston. They're actually a love quadrangle now
Yeah,
that I think.
it's weird to me that like there's no polyamory in Star Trek.
That
Everyone
is,
is only in monogamous relationships.
You
in
know,
the
there's a
future.
strong suggestion of polyamory in TNG, like with Riker, kind of. But yeah, you're right. It's
Riker and Troy are they have an open relationship.
yeah.
that's the only way they make sense. Like,
They straight up because we know from Lower Decks when they're going to Little Ryza and Troy is like, oh yeah, I guess we need to bring the little Horgon. You know, it's like oh yeah, like they're clearly into like being able
Having
to
fun.
sleep with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
There's always the joke about the best way to tie up a love triangle is a throuple.
Yeah, I mean, why not? You know, let everyone win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about the possibility of a Jack Crusher, Beverly Crusher, and Jean-Luc Picard throuple.
Isn't that like the X-Men comics currently? Basically, Wolverine, Jean Grey, and Cyclops are basically a throuple. Like they won't admit it exactly, but they just have bedrooms that are all like right together and have like a common area, and you're like, huh, like good for them.
Well, the way that the episode ends, it's kind of bookend with the B&B game, like to match with the opening. Except now I guess they have to like buy more Ferengi games to get the other adventures. They either have to subscribe to the season or purchase everything a la carte. And there's like a Gowron expansion. There's the dinner with Lady Lindor. I thought all that stuff was pretty funny, like the advertising there at the end.
I would love. I wonder how like likeness rights work in the Star Trek universe. Because, like,
I'm not sure because like
we've actually talked about this a lot with the holodeck and what Barkley did and stuff. Like,
that's true.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Well, this Barkley is, as far as I know, Barkley's not selling his holograms, right? He's just creating them for personal use. Weirder in its own way.
Yeah.
I mean, like this came from the Ferengi black market, though. So
so maybe the Ferengis don't care.
I think when you're
Martok can give his permission,
right?
But considering they called him Chancellor, Gowron cannot.
When we were talking about this, we imagined a scenario where when you're getting like in the future, similar to today, you go and get like some kind of ID or whatever, but in the future it scans you like in a way.
Can we put you in a holodeck program?
Yeah, and so you sign a little consent that says, are we allowed, is Starfleet allowed to use your image in training scenarios or Kobayashi Maru type events or whatever? And so at that point, people say yes or no. And so maybe Barkley was exploiting that a little bit, and like maybe the Federation was a little innocent thinking, oh, this doesn't go on, right? Like, so it's like, who knows, after that, maybe there was some rewriting.
Also, Leah Brahms.
Oh, yeah, oh gosh, yeah, like, oh my gosh.
At least that started.
I still want Leah and Geordi. I wouldn't mind Leah and Geordi to be together, but I'm understanding a little bit more. Why people think Geordi's so creepy.
Picard season 3. We will know who Geordi ends up with.
Yeah, it's true.
In a few months.
Let's be real. I think I responded to one of our chats once. I was like, well, Geordi's real love Data is dead, so.
Yes, it's true. That's a good point.
I don't necessarily mind the idea of Geordi ending up with Leah, but I don't want it just to be like, and like I want to actually see them as a couple and not just have it based on the idea that he fell in love with her as a hologram.
Right. But also, it is a weird scenario, but like, let's just say in an academic situation, you might be studying a field and reading like a lot of books by a certain professor and maybe have seen their picture and stuff like that. And then, you never know. You can end up being that person's friend. Like I certainly have friends now that I admired when I was younger in the industry of, whether it was film or whatever, like just people that were more like that I admired and thought were mentors. Like I remember as a kid maybe having, this is much younger than Jordy, just to talk about Jordy's kind of like mindset, but as a kid I would definitely talk to them as if they were like there sometimes, like, or wonder what they would say or something, it's like this like kind of fascination with your heroes. And so I saw it as more of hero worship, but we're not here to talk about that episode, right, Father?
Yeah, but I don't know if there's much more to say on this episode unless you
well,
have
I
any
just want to say, I do
final
want to say
thoughts.
that it is very sweet that they've kind of someone pointed this out in the space, but like the Sequoia, is that the name of the shuttle there in the background that they're always kind of like working on?
Yeah, that Shax flew over to the Packlet ship when he blew up, but he pushed Baby Bear Rutherford back off of the ship in it. So
it's cute that they hang out in this like bay, and that they're always kind of like the Sequoia is always in kind of some state of like, disrepair or being worked on or something. I really like this like setting, and it does remind me so much of the poker thing you were talking about, like how they would gather and stuff like that. So I really dig this little bookend, and it feels like more special, like they're like definitely getting closer as a like a little pod. And I'm certainly getting more endeared to these characters with scenes like this. It's like pretty cool.
Yeah, I want to see them play the Galron expansion. Let's get Bob O'Reilly in the recording booth.
Yes.
Get some Galron voice action.
I want to see them animate those crazy eyes.
Yeah, they're gonna, because all these characters have like the giant round eyes, so they're gonna have to make his like 20% larger.
The funny thing is that he does that like intentionally. I can't imagine holding that pose because like his eyes are nowhere near that like.
I will say there's an episode of Deep Space Nine where he's like he's playing a character on the holodeck, and he's just he's just a human, and I saw his eyes and I was like, that's Garrod. Like even when he wasn't doing it, I'm like, those piercing blue eyes, I know who that is.
I think in all of the Next Generation and all of Deep Space Nine, you only see Galron blink one time. I think in Way of the Warrior you can catch him blinking one time, but yeah, like Norma's eyes are always at like 100%.
Excuse me.
But yeah, if that's all we got, I'm going to go ahead and take us into the Gorn Egg section of the show. So these are all of the Easter eggs and jokes and continuity connections I found in the episode that I thought were worth mentioning. I'm just starting off, speaking of Martok and our Batleths and BIHnuchs game. That is, in fact, J.G. Hertzler coming back as Martok. I saw someone in the live audience asking, why didn't Martok have an eye patch? But he's never had an eye patch. He just has his kind of deformed face from the Jim Hadar camp. You might be thinking of Chang. The Klingon Chang had a patch bolted into his head.
I love Martok is like my favorite Klingon, so this made me so happy.
Yeah, everybody loves Martok, right?
Yeah.
So everybody loves Raymond. Everybody loves Martok. But that VCR game,
there it is.
That was actually Bob O'Reilly, not as Galron, but as a different Klingon. But it definitely was reminiscent of that. And then there's also a Star Trek Klingon video game that came out on PCs back in 1996 that had both of the big Klingon actors, Robert O'Reilly and J.G. Hertzler, but neither one playing Galron or Martok. They're just like these different Klingons. I think that was a rights thing. Like they didn't want to have to like pay the writers this character.
Narrated by Michael Dorn.
Yes, yeah. The footage in the game was one of those games that uses like live action footage and stuff.
Directed by
pretty
Frakes.
Common in the 90s. Yeah, all that stuff was shot by Jonathan Frakes. So.
What?
And you can find a lot of it on YouTube.
Yeah, I think this is one of these is the ones they linked to.
I will say, so when I look at some of that stuff, I was like, I wonder if they got paid for that.
And so we find out what's going on with Vendome in this episode. If you don't remember him, he was the Bolian on the Cerritos. Boimler mentions he's the guy who gets stabbed with spears. But yeah, that happened in the third episode of the show. I just want to point out that Vendome got stabbed with a spear, and then in this episode, Boimler gets stabbed with a spear.
That's what happens when you're bold. You get stabbed with a spear.
I think that's what happens when you're on your way to becoming captain someday. So
you know what?
I guess
Picard gets stabbed in the heart. So
yeah, Picard was stabbed. So
that's true.
And in the universe where he didn't become captain.
Yeah, so it's one of the secret ingredients to becoming captain.
Father, you might be onto one of the weirdest little kind of canon-y things in Star Trek. I'm gonna have to do some research now.
I have no proof that Kirk or Cisco wasn't stabbed. So.
There you go.
True. Maybe Strange in the World will show us Kirk getting stabbed before he becomes
yeah, we're gonna see Paul Wesley get stabbed. Vendome is captain of the Inglewood, so we can assume that's another California class ship, probably named after Inglewood, California, which is where they have that iconic donut shop that Iron Man visited.
That's hilarious that you pulled this image.
Inglewood's like the hood, right? Like near Los
I don't
Angeles.
know. I don't know much about. It's a LA neighborhood or like near LA. It's Southern California.
I don't know enough. Despite the fact that apparently,
if Aaron was here, he would tell us.
One of my podcast co-hosts, their father is convinced I'm from California by my voice, and I have never lived in California.
I feel like also I have heard of Inglewood, but it was associated with something on the news?
There's a bunch of states have an Inglewood. It's like a fairly common name, but there is an Inglewood, California. But that Captain Chapman got turned into a baby, so Vendome had to step up and become captain.
So yeah, similar situation to the Rascals. That's funny.
It's similar to Rascals, but I think more similar to the animated series episode, The Counterclock Incident, where we see Kirk and the rest of the Enterprise crew turn into little infant babies.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Robert April had to take command of the Enterprise again.
That's so much more appropriate because it is the current animated series, so referencing the previous one. That's cool. That's pretty funny.
Delane, a planet full of sexy people that like to greet each other with kisses and whatnot. I think to me they looked the most like the aliens from the Apple, like we talked about earlier, but I think obviously more influenced by the Edo from Justice, especially with like their weird desire to execute people.
Sorry. I thought you were going to say weird nut huggers.
Weird nut huggers. Yeah, that sure. Why not? That too.
I mean, Rachel's cracking up.
I muted myself with the dogs, and I was like, can't even hear it, but I'm
Well, we had space elevators in Star Trek one time before in the Voyager episode Rise.
Oh, I forgot. I actually remember seeing this episode now that you showed it. I must have been falling asleep when I was watching it. Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah, Starfleet Boy always sleeps through Voyager.
It's so weird.
No, let me tell you the big mistake in the episode. Is that they keep mentioning spring ball, but when we actually see the sport that Boimler goes to play, they're playing racquetball. They're on like the same court that Julian and O'Brien were on in Deep Space Nine and Rivals. They're even wearing like the same type of outfit that Bashir was wearing in that episode is what all the Starfleet people on the Cerritos are wearing when they play. The spring ball is like the Bajoran game, and it's
which looks like handball, which is a variation of handball. Yeah.
So yeah, they goofed up on that. I'm sorry, Lower Decks. You have a pretty good track record, but you got this one wrong. I'll forgive you.
That's a surprise. That's a big surprise to me, actually, because that doesn't seem like something that would happen on Lower Decks. But alas,
we all make mistakes.
Yeah, everyone makes a mistake every now and then. It's true.
But speaking of DS9, I think Cranch was very similar to Tosk. Instead of being an alien who's like, I must be hunted, he's like an alien who's like, I must do hunting. So, Starfleet Boy, I think you implied that the skydiving was very similar to a certain scene. I think it's recognizable to everyone as Star Trek 09. Olsen is gone, sir.
I just remember watching this scene and just seeing the one guy in red, and I was like, oh, I feel like I know what joke is coming up.
Just a quick nod, in the theater, this scene is incredible. Like, that was so cool to see Star Trek do something on this level. It felt like it was very... it was very like
it felt cinematic.
It felt cinematic, which they all the movies feel cinematic, but we've never had like this level of like scale. Yeah. I feel like until this movie came out.
And here's the Easter egg that I haven't seen anyone else pick up on yet. So you heard it from me first. But when Ransom reveals his lava tubes to the Delanians and wins the day and saves the engineers, he starts going on like this very captainy type Star Trek speech. It starts off about, although we come from different worlds, we are not that different. And it cuts away. We don't hear the end of it. But I recognize the opening words of that. I was like, that is the speech that he was trying to write on the wall when he was imprisoned with Mariner on the Crystal Planet way back in the 3rd episode of the show, Temporal Edicts, in season 1. He was writing on the wall in the cave, we may come from different worlds. So I caught that immediately the first time I heard it, but I haven't seen anyone else point that out on the internet. So there you go.
That's really rad. Nice catch there, Fabi.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, and also it took him 3 years to perfect that, I'm imagining.
Well,
he's been that's all he writes on his pad. Or 2 years.
We don't know if there was a time jump though in from season 2 to season. Mike McMahon said some things to suggest that season 2 and season 3 might be the same year.
Yeah, it's only.
We got a start date.
They do say I don't know if we got a start date, but they did say it was only been a couple of weeks or something like that since the incident. Yeah. Because
I know Mike McMahon, he suggested he wants to finish Lower Decks before we get to like the Mars attack stuff from Picard.
Oh, that's interesting that he wants to stop it at that point. That's sad too, that there's
an
end point. I always imagine Lower Decks being like The Simpsons and just going on forever.
He wants the show to exist before we get in like that darker Starfleet where the Tal Shiar is infiltrated and
I think like his plan is like we'll just have time stops so we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Like so we're just gonna slow down the like timeline of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it's hard to, like we were saying, like, how long can these people stay ensigns? So,
but if we're watching a show that's day to day rather than like a few months go by per episode, that's not, it's not hard to do. You potentially could have 300 adventures, so that could take like several seasons to do in a year, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that. I also have some Subspace Transmissions I'd like to share. These were people's responses from last week's episode. So if you have thoughts on this week's episode, let us know in the comments. Let us know on Twitter. You can reply to my tweets and tell me, or you can let us know in the Tex-Trek Discord or the Tex-Trek Facebook page. But I have a few responses from last week's episode. I will put on the Klingon forehead, and I will read some of these. But Joanne Robertson said on last week's episode, Grounded, I acknowledge that I look at things from a different perspective, so this is probably an odd take, but I felt like I was watching an intervention. Mariner was unhinged. She doesn't trust the system. She doesn't trust her friends. She can't keep still or be quiet. It was a lot. I think that was intentional, Joanne, because I think we're going to have Mariner kind of learn and adjust and grow in this season and become a little bit more trusting of others.
Joanne, that's a neat perspective and pretty heavy, and I hadn't thought of that, and I really dig it. I'm like kind of liking that idea a lot. That maybe Mariner is finally dealing with some kind of trauma that she's been going through or something, and I did like that. That was one of the cool things. I think this season's gonna get deep. It's gonna be probably one of the funniest seasons, but I also think it's gonna get deep.
Well, Dan, who I was just hanging out with in Vegas a few days ago, hope you made it back home safe and sound, Dan. But Dan is saying, I like this show more and more. The season premiere was a wonderful opener and surprising on so many levels, from the cantankerous old transporter room operator to the trip to the Bozeman. Then the command crew showing up with the lesson, trust Starfleet. We told you it would work out. So yeah, they packed a lot into that episode last week. Scott said on Twitter, I love the show and it feels like a warm Star Trek hug, but the episode felt rushed. The solution came too easily. I certainly understand that. Yeah, they resolved everything with the captain and all of that drama pretty quickly. I think that was kind of the joke, but yeah, if you were hoping for something a little bit more weighty or dramatic, see how that would have been disappointing.
I feel like Lower Decks would have to have longer seasons. Like, I would like to see them like deal with those like kind of off things more, but their seasons are so short. I don't think they have time to.
Yeah. And we saw a bit of that, in season 1 where they end with Boimler leaving the Cerritos.
Mm-hmm.
But then he he got back there like real quick. So I wouldn't
Yeah.
expect these season-long cliffhangers. I wouldn't expect them to be like big game-changing things. They're more just kind of, I don't want to say like cheap hooks to come back for the next season, but I mean that's kind of like the Star Trek, or more broadly like kind of like the television tradition, you know, that inspired things like the Best of Both Worlds and you know, a lot of the Next Generation season ending cliffhangers. It's cut from the same cloth as that.
It'd be cool. It's the fact that they have very short seasons. Sometimes the TV show Brooklyn Nine-Nine would have like cliffhangers, and they would come back, and then they'd have to deal with it for like 3 episodes, and then they would eventually kind of get back to normal. Like, let's say a season ends with characters having to go into witness protection program, and this first 3 episodes of the next season, they're in witness protection, and that's like the storyline.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. If you're only doing 10-episode seasons, you don't want to spend like a 30-year
season on that.
Also,
I also just give me longer seasons of Lower Deck. I wouldn't mind that.
I do also think that, like, to me, I agreed with the sentiment of like, if we had spent time on it, like, it wouldn't have been Lower Decks, because like it's great that the idea that it's like this stuff was going on in the background, that the A plot is actually the B plot, right?
The big epic story. There's like this dramatic kind of like political thriller type, you know, investigation, like undercover work and starship chases and like all of that stuff going on behind the scenes. Yeah, it was like a Star Trek 6 type epic story happening. And yeah, but we just saw like the goofballs getting covered in alien sploof. So, but yeah, that's gonna do it for this week. We'll be back next week though, and also if you're watching us live on Friday, everyone needs to come back tomorrow on Saturday, because we're going to be doing a Las Vegas debrief.
Super fun, right after Starfleet Boy.
Yeah, so I think we're on 3:30 Central tomorrow on Saturday. I'll just run through my adventure in Vegas last weekend and talk about the convention and that experience. But yeah, so otherwise we'll be back next week, 7 p.m. Central on Friday, to discuss Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 3. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Long and prosper.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube.